Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Kelley Powell. Kelley is the CEO and partner of MacLaurin Group, a company providing technology, operating partner services to portfolios of private equity companies. Let me kind of bring that down into layman's terms. You are a group that help people look at companies they're buying, companies that currently exist. You look at what technology they need to scale, to hopefully sell to sell their company when people are buying companies. And this is how you scale using technology. You know, it's interesting, Kelley, I'm excited to talk to you because I think I see so many companies as a business coach grow and scale without technology. And then they piecemeal technology in, and then they spend all these resources on one piece of technology, and it takes so much energy because they really haven't done it right and really looked into the bedrock of what all the technology they need to really grow initially and scale long term. So as we dive into this, I think, COVID has forced companies to look at this, more so than ever before as we work remotely. And I don't see that going away, at least in some capacity. So let's dive into what is maybe the number one thing that companies aren't seeing within their own company when it comes to technology.
Yeah. First, great to be with you.
Yeah, great to be with you.
And thank you for the introduction. You got that right, even down to MacLaurin Group. So thank you.
Yes. Well, you coached me on it. My phonics are usually pretty terrible, but we did, we worked on it. But yes, thank you.
Yeah. So in the introduction, as you talked about your experience with entrepreneurs and technology, that the thing of my book that I wrote about Courage to Lose Sight of Shore talks about right fit partnership and the aspect of maybe you aren't good at something, but you're really good at something else. So focusing on the things that you're really good at, but having a partner who can help you with the things that you may not be. So when you think about what you just described with not necessarily having done everything that you needed to do initially with the technology, celebrate that you've grown a business, you've been successful without it, and then you're going to now take it to grow and scale. That's what we do. We look at it from a lens of growing and scaling a business for growth using technology.
Yeah.
And the private equity firms that we partner with are ones that look at a company just as you described, and they don't see that as a bad thing. They see that as a founder who's been hugely successful. Now, if we're able to whether reimagine the platform and technology or move that to the cloud or have it for scale and growth, now we can invest what is already a successful business around the technology to really grow and scale. And for me, that's incredibly fun. So that's what we get to do every day.
Yeah, but let's talk about that because you make it sound so easy. And pardon me, you make that's my dog in the background. But you make it sound so easy. But I really want whether somebody's listening now or later, right? Is that CEO, that VP of whomever, right, who is in charge of technology, or even somebody who's not and realizes there's a big gap, to say, okay, we need to bring in a outside group with outside eyes and outside lenses to look at our company, because this is a real big investment. But it's if we do it the wrong way, it can cost us millions of dollars, or it can make us millions of dollars. So just kind of talk about the pause and the time commitment to really revamp.
Yeah. And I know when I say it depends, folks tell me I was on a radio earlier, and folks said that's a terrible answer. But the answer is it depends. So it needs to be what is unique for you as a founder and where you are. So let's use the scenario that you do have someone who's responsible for your technology. It might even be whoever it was that you happened to room with in college who knew a particular technology. And so you started a business because you asked your buddy sitting next to you, can you help me? I don't know the technology side. Can we do this together? And so whatever technology your roommate knew is where you started.
Yeah.
So now when you think about, okay, I have customers, I am making revenue, I've taken the company as far as I can. I now want to look for a partner to help me invest and to know where I should take the technology to be able to align with my strategy for the business, especially if you look across, if you have somebody in technology and you look across from them and you say, we're going to, take our sales and we're going to just explode it. And we're going to we're going to grow. And the person responsible for your technology, passes out at the table with you going, oh my gosh, we can't do it. That's a problem. So you need to be able to have those conversations about what you need and what's possible. And when you think about making it really, so it's not easy, it's hard, but it's pretty simple. You've got to make sure that you're aligned with a partner who understands the timing of where you need to grow and scale and to do that. And when we look and talk to a founder, our lens is really around when private equity is thinking about a 3 to 5 year investment. So what can we do with the technology to be able to grow and scale a company right now in the next 3 to 5 years? Because we want to be able to benefit from that growth. But then also when we're thinking about who's going to now buy the business, because you're in a cycle. So who's going to buy the business next? And have we been really thoughtful about the way that we are going to leverage technology in our business to have a path for someone else to take it and to be able to build off of it? And that is not easy. But if you start at a mindset of being able to think at it that way from surround yourself with folks who've done it before, even if it's not MacLaurin Group, because none of us do anything on our own. We're all learning from each other. As a business coach, wouldn't it, the role that you have, learning from what others have done. And so that's really what you're doing by bringing an advisor in, because the private equity firm is going to do that before they acquire you. They are going to bring someone in and take a look at it. So one of the things that we do for founders is be able to come in and do a technology due diligence and think through that in a way where you're learning what that process is going to be like even before you go into an investment cycle of courting some private equity firm. So why wait to have that information?
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. I want to go back and touch on a couple things because I love the technology due diligence deep dive. I think I think every company could use that to really get a deep understanding. But I want to throw out a couple stats, and then I have a question for you. You've been talking a lot about the next 3 to 5 years, and the next, pre-COVID studies have shown that 85% of the jobs that exist in the year 2030 do not exist today. Pre-COVID studies have also shown that 75% of the global workforce by 2025 will be millennials. And pre-COVID studies showed that by the year 2027, 50% of the workforce will be freelancers. Now enter COVID has accelerated all of that. Companies who could not figure out how to work remotely or flex time from March 15th to April 1st figured it out. And so we have this next decade of just complete innovation in front of us, complete companies that will have to adapt quickly. And so when you talk about the next 3 to 5 years, I think it's such a critical conversation to have now, right? Like start with the end in mind, Coveyism, and then reverse engineer today to start planning. And so you said something, which is, I say all that to go back to something you said, which is you have to have the conversation. And so my question to you is, to the person listening who has the voice and the ear of a decision maker who doesn't understand what we just talked about, what you're talking about, how do they start the conversation with the person that can really effectuate change?
So, and that was a lot of stats. And one thing, even before I answer that question, I would say, going back to your point on even pre-COVID, when folks weren't prepared to work remote, think about the companies that they may have been scared to move to the cloud or virtual environment, right? They had always been on-prem, and they were afraid, I can't sell that to my customers because they're used to everything being on-prem.
Right.
the clients and the businesses who were already moving towards that, right, had something that then they could react and be there in that moment with their clients to be able to respond.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about a video call. It was literally their businesses, the systems of their lifeline of their businesses. Because you may have even had one person, yes, you've got everything that's available online, but you've still got to make sure that you have that person who's going to go back up to the office and reboot the computer that happens to be in a cabinet somewhere, to be able to have continuity of your business. So when you think about technology, it's all of those things. And so with COVID, I would say that one thing that we saw and we experienced, I think, because private equity sometimes gets a bad name, right? You hear all these scary stories, a lot of things that are in the media. One thing with COVID, I mean, the folks that we work with, folks that we're really fortunate to work with, the private equity firms, they were very much focused on the success of their portfolio company.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, nobody was going to avoid being impacted by COVID.
Yeah.
Whether you were with a private equity firm or not, you were going to be impacted. Now imagine you've got this team of investors who are going to maybe pause a little bit on extending their portfolio investments of new acquisitions, but focused on your operations and are you successful and how are we going to do this together to be able to get through this period that we're all experiencing. Folks were very fortunate to be in that position. Yes, there were companies that didn't have a good experience, but for the most part, from my experience, those were the companies that were better off because they had partners who were willing to dig in and help them for whatever they needed and focus on the health and well-being of their portfolio companies.
Yeah.
And so I would take that a step further to your question around how do you have the conversation?
Well, the reason I asked that piece of it is because I think sometimes, in high leadership roles, there's still, and I know because I work with a lot of them, there's still a lot of leaders within the leadership role that are scared and have to politic around to kind of, say, hey, this is what we got to do. This is who we need to talk to. And so I think a lot of people are always looking for what's that way for me to tee up the conversation to really show the strength of why we need this now.
Yeah. For me, it's all about the transparency. And my recommendation to the person about having the conversation is that no matter what the end result of the conversation, it's good news, even if it's bad news. And I talk about that a lot.
That's a great line. Right. That's a great line. I'm going to get to your book, but that's great. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's where people need that one line that they can just kind of take. So wait, say that again. I want to hear it again.
Yeah. So when we have the conversation, no matter what the outcome, whether it's good news or bad news, right? It's all good news because now we know and we can move forward by not having the conversation and not being transparent and not being really honest, even with yourself. I mean, sometimes as entrepreneurs, being really honest about what we're good at, what we're not good at, and being able to fill those gaps. Going back to when we first started about the due diligence side, I think sometimes folks get really scary. So let's go back to that scenario where it's the college roommate, did technology.
Right.
It's interesting because sometimes we'll have folks who will be concerned that we're coming in to do their job.
Yeah.
To take their job.
I'm glad you said that because that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not.
Or replace their job or just. Yeah.
Right. And let me be clear that you have to be good at what you do and be willing to embrace this journey of growth and moving forward. If you're not, if you're going to work against the private equity firm, well, then that will be ultimately the outcome. But if you are wanting to truly grow the company and invest, then, it's certainly never us. We're not there to take your job. We are there to bolster you, to be able to, folks kind of describe it as a stealth team to come in and think about what is my next architecture going forward? How do I have an experience? if you've never had to report to a board or a private equity firm about where you need to make investments, you haven't had that experience
Right.
being able to even think about that. And a lot of times, it may be that you're asking for not enough for an investment of technology, because as entrepreneurs and business leaders, as you described, being able to have that just enough technology to have you move forward, you may have been so much in a mindset of, I want to grow, but I want to cut costs. I don't want to spend money that I don't need to. I want to save by cost. I want to impress you by cutting cost. Well, with a private equity firm, they are investors. They're investing in that platform for the future revenue, the future growth of somewhere, and they feel comfortable with that. And that's often, a pivot for technology leaders if they haven't had someone who's truly wanting to invest in the technology side, as long as it aligns with the strategy. And so being able to embrace that is sometimes very different. And for me, I'm not sure what it says about my personality, but I think it's a lot of fun when we kind of hit that point where folks realize, wait, they are bringing folks in to support me, not to replace my job, but to truly support me.
Yeah. I always find, Kelley, that quantifying everything, right? So it's like, you look at technology and you say to a company, okay, how many hours a year will this save your company, right? And then and then equate the equation to what that could actually, in dollars, is actually costing them, or where they could then reallocate people to do what their leading activities are, what they're supposed to be doing, and speeding and accelerating the process. But you said something as far as, cutting costs. I think it's so important what you're talking about, to look at this type of stuff as an investment and not an expense. And I think a lot of times people put it in the expense line, but really it should be in the investment line, and there should be all the benefits of how you can grow, scale, and accelerate things on a faster basis. So how do you go into a company when their budget should be here, but their budget is here? And then how do you tell them, hey, if you raise your budget, this is going to be the return. This is how much time you'll save, and this increases your probability, right? So how do you kind of narrow that gap?
Yeah, and when you first are partnering and you're acquired by a private equity firm, they are going to look at what are those cost savings that you can do. Where does it make sense? Right? I mean, there's that lever you can pull, and as well as the investing side and then moving forward. And also, not just about where we can save folks and their value add, because that's really important for them to focus on. What is really the value that I'm bringing, and what are the other tasks that I'm doing that aren't the best use of my time and talents for our clients and to sell products, but also what is the next thing to be able to extend what we're doing for our clients, to be able to grow the business in a way that is, whether it's adding features or whether adding products or services. And has your technology been built out in a way that you can extend it, so that you can, if there's a need, there's a pain point out for your customers that you can address, are you able to do that? And are you able to respond quickly? So thinking about it really kind of across that spectrum is important. All of those things need to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah. All right, I love it. I love talking about technology. I'm 48, but when I was 23, I started an internet company with my brother and a buddy of ours back in 1995. And so I love technology and just everything it has to offer for companies. And so I think what you're doing is great. I want to talk about your book. That recently came out. It's available on Amazon. It's called Courage to Lose Sight of Shore: How to Partner with Private Equity to Grow Your Business with Confidence. And I want to kind of start with the word confidence, because I think confidence is so important in business. And so how did you come up with the title of the book?
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting that you focus on the confidence part, because that was important for me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell. I mean, the energy of it is really because you could have easily ended the book with private equity to grow your business, period. But with confidence, it jolts you to kind of like step into yourself.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
so for me, so much of the process, well, one, I was joking earlier, I wrote a book so my friends and family know what it is that I do. Like, what is it you do? But there's so much, there's a mystique around that, because so much of the work that we do is confidential. It is private by definition. It's private equity. It happens behind closed doors. So folks don't have a perspective of what private equity is and just how wonderful it can be for a founder to use this as a venue to be able to grow their business. And so the things that we fear, and that whole losing sight of shore, it's really scary to go out in an open ocean and just trust that you've got everybody you need with you. Your boat's ready. You're going where you're going to go. And when you look around and you can't see safety, for me, that's kind of when you as an entrepreneur are letting go of something, letting go by partnering with someone, you have to make sure it's the right person. And that is a two-way street. So with the confidence, for me, I wanted to be able to tell the story of what it means to partner with private equity in a way that is truly about growing your business.
Yeah.
When you find that right partner. And it isn't about, right, and I talk a lot about my experience with Bill Royal. It's kind of the red string throughout the book, growing that company as a founder owned to $1 billion business, and being able to do it in a lovely way, in the right way, doing right by your customers, doing right by your investors, making the right choices. Just some really good business lessons. But we can't do something with confidence that we haven't necessarily done before, or have experience, or have exposure, or have a line of sight into. And so it may not be that private equity is right for you. It may not. But if it is, I wanted to give a glimpse into what it would mean.
Yeah.
And I think folks are surprised when they read it that a large part of that I put back on the founder and say, you have to do your work first.
Yeah.
You have to know what it is you want, what your non-negotiables are, what you're looking for, what is your story, what's important, because private equity firms are different. And so the ownership that you have to take on in the process to be prepared, really important. And that's how you can do it with confidence, is because you know that you've prepared, because it happens so fast once you're in a process. Goodness, it moves, it moves fast.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really good point, because the founder, who is the ultimate leader, is responsible for 95% of the rhythm of every company. And they do. And I love non-negotiables. I use that word all the time. I love that you use it, but the founder has to, has to do their work. It's critical. Well, good luck on your book. I mean, I think it's really exciting, and I'm excited for you and everything. I want to talk a little bit about, before we close, I have a 17-year-old son, and I have a 14-year-old daughter. And she's brilliant, and she's going to do amazing things. So is my son, but I just am focusing on my daughter for right now. And today, 7.8% of the 39 Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Less than 1% identify as a person of color. That's going to change in 2021 to 8%. But still, I mean, so what is your message as a CEO to other women to get into the CEO space, and for men to open up their eyes and open up the opportunities for women to step into?
Yeah. So my advice is be the best person at the table, and prepare and network and learn and be really good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are, and I would say to your daughter or any other entrepreneur of diversity who wanted to reach out and find ways, there's women in venture, VCU Da Vinci, who I'm the chairperson for the Angel Advisory Board there. the program that they have, with mentors and folks, there are ways to be able to get in front of the right network, which is why a reason why I wanted to write the book, to be able to say, here is how you want to reach out. And I also talk about even just some of the courses that you can take at your college. And when it's a little thing, but I talk about one of my mentors in an MBA program. I took his M&A course as an elective. It was the hardest course in the entire program, but I took it because I really enjoyed his other courses in strategic. And it was life-changing for me because it made me fall in love in a way with mergers and acquisitions I may not have otherwise.
Yeah.
And so, when folks are showing up to some of those courses, or whether you see someone out or researching someone that you think is a mentor or someone that you aspire to be, find someone, reach out.
Yeah.
They are willing to listen, to engage. But again, it goes back to the ownership is on you. If you are waiting for someone to either say, look, I found you as a business, it happens, yes. But if you are also waiting to be the person who is going to be handpicked to be something and somebody else, put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for everyone who has given me a seat at the table, we all need someone to believe in us, for the folks who have believed in me. But my advice would be, decide that you're going to show up prepared and you're going to let it know that you have an interest in this opportunity. So I don't think it's always just about right? Nobody's given an opportunity. And to be able to, you have to show up. You have to show up. So be there. And if your daughter's the only female in the room for something, stay in the room.
Stay in the room. I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's great. That's awesome. All right, Kelley, you ready for a quick speed round?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. I see you've written a book. I see you have some books behind you. What's your favorite book, business book, and why?
So I have a list, but I will play the game. Currently, right now, my favorite business book is Margie Worrell's You've Got This. And the reason is she wrote the book before COVID, and it's very real and very authentic.
What's it called?
You've Got This.
Okay, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
All right, good. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
None of us do it alone.
That's important. One piece of advice you would give somebody graduating college right now, who's graduating in a completely different world than they thought 8-9 months ago?
You're really lucky because you have a defining moment of what are you going to do with this moment. Yeah. And again, I would say show up. And I think just like the founders who dug in and decided they were going to make this year an investment instead of being paralyzed by the fear of what happens next, that whole take a risk and create your own destiny. Don't back off. Don't use this as an excuse. Do whatever it takes and push and follow what you want to do next, because there are plenty of businesses out there that are looking for that right fit and will need you. It may be harder.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Just keep pushing.
Yeah, I love it. Kelley, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, who your ideal clients are, and all your contact information.
You bet. So to find me, information about the book, information about MacLaurin Group, interests and things that I love, like the Alzheimer's Association, you can go to my website, kelleywpowell.com. So I have 2 E's, so Kelley, wpowell.com. You can email me at kelley@kelleywpowell.com. To find more about MacLaurin Group, we're MacLaurin-group.com. Our clients are both private equity firms who are looking for kind of that $10 million to $850 million mid-market company acquisition to grow and want to leverage technology to do that. And whether it's a founder who wants to look at considering private equity and before they even get an investment cycle, to be able to do a technology due diligence and think about how they want to use technology to grow and scale. So yeah, so please reach out. Let me know with the book what resonates, what doesn't. I love it when people disagree with me. Feedback is a gift.
Yeah,
So
that's
please
true.
reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show, Kelley. You're doing great things. Congratulations on your book, the success of your growing company, what you're doing for companies to help them scale and open up the lenses of technology so they can be more effective, more efficient, more so than they probably ever really realized they could. I still think as innovative and technology minded people are, they still don't even understand so much of what technology can do to grow and scale a company, to allow people to really do what their unique ability is, their leading activities, and everything else that they really need to do on a daily basis. And you're doing great things. We didn't talk about the beautiful work you're doing as a mentor and an angel investor and a chairwoman of Da Vinci Center for Innovative Angels. But we'll have you on another time to maybe dive into that. And thanks for being a trailblazer for my daughter and all the girls that are, following following your path to the CEO title. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I would tell your daughter, I heard it somewhere, but think big.
Yeah, I'll tell her you said that. She'll probably listen to you before she listens to me. So, all right, Kelley, thanks so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Thanks,
Kelley.
John. Thanks, everybody.